We are live. Well, good morning and happy new year from the Pastords.
Welcome to 2024. How was 2023 for you?
Not good, Raj. Not good.
No, I found myself asking a couple people questions like with the question of like 2023, is that, oh, I could not get out of, that faster, or I hope 2024 is like 2023. I just wonder where people are.
Yeah, I saw a number of blog posts, number 2 in particular, that talked about how 2023 was just a tough year for 2 different people that have been sort of mentors to me. And I'm like, oh, God, it's interesting. Because I didn't know during the year that they were having such a tough year, but that they blogged about it at the end of the year. And it was like going into 2024 with new expectations and high hopes. And
well, maybe part of you not saying that was also you were having a pretty sucky,
well,
at points, 2023.
I reflected on when you have 10 months of depression in any year, that's a long time.
Wait. 10 months out of that?
So mid-January to October.
So the septic system tanked you.
Oh, yeah, the septic system and 2 moves. Yeah, you can't, and then my body's own struggle with depression anyway. But when you do 2 moves in 1 year, one move is enough to get anyone into a divorce, because it does. Moving heightens everything about the differences between the husband and wife.
Even if you love the place you're going to,
absolutely.
even if it's
a very good thing,
right? But
then you do it twice.
You're tempting fate there.
You are tempting fate, because you're
tempting the divorce gods.
And when we were even when we were young, we moved. We stayed in one place for a year, and then we stayed in the next place 5. So there is something about this, just a stable. Anyway, there's several things that made the year super, just harder than a normal year. But then I looked back at the end of the year and I said, ultimately, it was a good year.
Grandbaby.
First,
yay.
First grandbaby. Really, really, really lots of great speaking opportunities, particularly in the last quarter.
Yeah.
Just sort of surprising what God did in that quarter, which was beautiful. And
you say you went to Peru. Some fascinating.
Oh yeah, did a lot of fun stuff, cool stuff.
Right.
What happens is when you're experiencing depression, it taints the way you experience almost anything. So I was on Catalina Island 3 times last year. I was reflecting on that beautiful place just to be and to hang out. But you can't enjoy it at the same level if you're
kind of a veil.
It's a great way of putting it. You're a little foggy and you're a little sad, but thankfully it wasn't what I would call a brutal depression. Like a brutal depression is debilitating. You have a hard time getting anything done. You're sad and mad.
You've had that.
I've had those before. So this was much more what I would call just a not quite mild depression, but intermediate, if I can use that term.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, I'm going to speak on that next year at Speak Up. They've asked me to speak on how to help yourself or someone you love when you're experiencing depression. And I've done that talk several times, but it always helps people, because just to know that other people are in that space, and for a lot of spouses in particular, or parents of children, giving them some specific, here's what to do. They're like, okay, all right, I have a game plan. I can do that. And there's some very specific what not to do. Don't tell them all the things they should be doing, because they can't, and that's just tanking them more.
No, and it's the gift of someone who can speak out of experience, because that just changes the whole game. Where this isn't someone offering is
well, and I said it in a blog post late last year. I chose the word joy for the year, and I think God chose the word perseverance. And those
that was so good.
And those go together, because it's counted all joy when you go through various trials, because these trials are developing character, and character develops perseverance. And once you've gained that quality, according to Scripture, you're mature and complete, lacking nothing. This persevering. And I heard your face cast yesterday on the difference between joy and happiness, and I was going to take some of that into my joy talk.
Okay.
Because there's helpful things, because we sometimes confuse them. When I think of joy, it has to do more with contentment than a feeling of happy.
Well, yeah, and that was
because contentment is something I have to choose. You can actually be discontent in any state,
right,
or you can be content in any state.
Well, that was what struck me in trying to wrestle with happy and joy.
Well, even the research on over 200 times joy is used versus like 20 times
the word happy.
I'm like, I think God's trying to tell us something. Absolutely, I agreed with that.
That it's some, and I was trying to wrestle. How would I define happy? Seems fairly easy to define in some ways, and again, some will define joy as just extra happy. But in the Bible,
happy.
right. This is
that was
literally
there.
That was, and it's. But I realized what you were just saying there, that it's happiness with a mix of hope, contentment, peace.
Yeah.
And that's what hit me is that it's a different quality.
Yeah.
And of course, part of my point was, okay, happy comes from good times. When things are going well,
yep.
we want to be happy. But the fascinating thing is that joy doesn't have to have good times. That because it's this mix of these other things. Anyway, and I still don't have this classic, wonderful definition of joy.
Neither do I.
But the reality that it is more a quality than a feeling. It has a feeling attached to it, but it's something that the Spirit
think about it. And you
forges.
It's a fruit of the Spirit. Joy is forged. And I also would say I would agree with Stephen Curtis Chapman's wife, who wrote the book Choose Joy. It is something you choose in those hard places. In other words, joy comes naturally to me in certain places, in the good places, the easy places where things are going well, the pleasant places. But then I have to choose it. I have to choose contentment. I have to choose peace, those other things. But what's funny is when I do, there is a feeling associated when I choose peace. Jesus said, in this world, you will have trouble, but in me, you can have peace. And so I'm like, it's juxtaposition. There's trouble, which normally creates distress and concern and worry and fear and anxiety. But Jesus says, no, in the trouble, if you're in me, you can have peace.
Yeah.
In the middle of that trouble. So it's a choice that I have to make. It's a sort of a cognitive choice. But when I do, it's like I said years ago, I either trust God or I don't. And I do. And even when I say that internally, I have this feeling of peace.
Yeah, what you're saying makes sense of the instruction. Rejoice in the Lord always. In other words, that's
right. In the Lord.
Choose joy. Rejoice. The definition would be choose joy in the Lord in everything. And what I'm finding at 62 is I do that more than ever.
Yeah.
It's not that life has suddenly gotten easier. But when I think about still this kind of I feel a lot of joy in life, and that isn't I can say at the points where I'm feeling joy in a time, recently kind of had an exchange with someone, kind of an angry exchange. Someone really ticked off at me, and there was hurt attached to that, and so on. But in that, I realized what never left me in all of that rest and just kind of joy never left me. I mean, in other words, and I realized this is that thing that this fruit of the Spirit that God forges in you, not only can last through pain. If we think about the word forged, it's created in pain. And this is part of Tim Keller brought this up, because he talked about suffering, this image as a fire, and we think, but he's using the image of forging. So something goes through fire, it gets stronger, it gets more purified, it's the fire that actually produces it. And so he says this interesting thing. He says there's this peculiar, deep, poignant kind of joy that only comes through suffering.
Right.
The idea that actually suffering can help shape And I think this is what's happened. I'm not permanently, I'm going to say, okay, I've never, well, it's not even the opposite of grieving. I can grieve with joy. I can ache. I can face a loss with something other than happiness, but it is something that is restful. It's hopeful. And in that rest and that hope, there is a kind of happiness feels too thin, but
Right, but
there's a feeling.
There is a feeling
There's
attached
a feeling.
to it. That's the interesting thing. So we're not saying that joy is the absence of a feeling.
No,
it's not like we're trying to achieve what is the Buddhist idea of the absence of desire. There's no more ache.
Right.
Because if there's no ache, I don't know that there's any joy.
Exactly.
If there's no desire, I'm not sure there's ever the experience of the fulfillment of that desire.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's why that narrative of the world does not resonate. That, and God doesn't call us to deny pain, to act like it's not there. He's not saying it's not awful, it's not bad. No, we're actually taught to walk into it with him. You've got something.
Well, no, I'm just thinking, I realize joy is something the world is looking for right now. And I'll tell you why I say that. I took a phone call. It was a 615 number yesterday. I don't normally take it, but I was driving back from Wears Valley. It's like a 4-hour drive. And so I took it because I had put a note on Facebook, call me, reach out if you want information about the Machu Picchu trip. So I'm like, I got to take all these calls just because I don't know who it might be.
Right.
Anyway, it was a person that wanted me to do a corporate talk in Nashville. And they asked about what kind of things you talk about. And I said, well, I've been doing this talk on joy. It's what I did last month for another corporate group. And she said, oh, that sounds great. And I thought, isn't that interesting? This is a business group. This is a corporate group. They're bringing in their corporate leaders from around the country. But a talk on joy was very appealing. And I wonder how much of that comes out of this long pandemic.
Yeah.
The polarization of the political system here, the war in Israel, the war in Russia. In other words, we're maybe my next book should be Desperate for Joy. Well, you know what I mean? Because we're in a space right now where people are gravitating to talk about joy. Talk about that.
Your next, but
isn't that interesting?
Right here on the pod. You heard it first.
You heard it first. But I just thought,
no,
I think we are. We're getting so much bad news every day. It can begin to steal your joy, not in the ways that you and I've talked about it, but in the ways that we've maybe traditionally understood it, and it has for me at a certain level.
And what's striking about that is, I think people in snippets are finding happiness.
Yeah,
because
settling.
They go out. They go on a trip.
Yes,
and they see amazing sights.
Same thing. They're going to go on a vacation.
Yeah.
They're going to have an experience. You're going to get that what I call a fleeting feeling of happiness that's attached to circumstances.
Yep.
It's directly attached to circumstances.
No, I was reading Ecclesiastes where he says, when times are good, be happy.
Yeah.
Well, of course, this is.
He's giving them permission to do something that's natural.
But we want, and I think are made for something. We're made for joy.
Yeah.
If it's a fruit of the Spirit, we're actually, fruit of the Spirit is not happiness. It's not that happiness is a gift from God, but joy is a far better gift.
Roger, I just had a thought. So, well, I just said it. I mean, happiness is a natural response to good things.
Yeah.
But joy is a supernatural response.
Yes.
Think about it. It's a fruit of the Spirit. Peace is a fruit of the Spirit. Love is a fruit of the Spirit. It is something that the Spirit, using your word, forges in us.
Right.
In other words, Roger, we don't actually ever learn to love until we meet the unlovable. You know what I mean?
What do you?
Well, you learn to love your enemies until you have one.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
Yeah, it's that thing of I choose the way of Christ in this moment because, and we find out how beautiful it is. But if we had no enemies in one sense, ever had any enemies or anyone that wronged us, that teaching of Jesus would seem odd.
No, it's why hope.
Oh no, I should say it would seem odder. It already seems odd.
And it's why hope is forged in grieving.
Yeah.
contentment is forged
in lack,
in want, in other words, these things, and it's why joy is forged in hardship.
And Paul argued that contentment is also forged in abundance, where he's able to say enough is enough. Just where, in American culture, and again, I don't know about other cultures as much, but it's almost like you can never have enough money. There's always more. There's always, I need more. I want more. And I'm like, but what are we willing to sacrifice for peace? Would you rather have money or peace? Because they're not the same. We sometimes think they're the same.
Right. No, and then it's the thought, well, more money or more good times or more pleasurable experiences will eventually either peace or contentment or finally satisfaction, because I ain't got no satisfaction,
or freedom from the grief or relief from the grief. In other words, it's almost like if I can stack up enough happy moments, it'll offset the unhappy moments. It'll offset the difficult moments. And by the way, I've bargained that before.
Oh yeah,
in my own mind.
Wasn't it what Solomon, Ecclesiastes, is talking about? I mean,
well, no, Ecclesiastes is a big book. So a lot of interesting things there.
No, it's the thing. I tried wine, women, and song. I mean, he just goes through the litany. I did this, I did this,
for dang sure.
And I did this. Well, it reminded me, I watched a baptism service online a couple of days ago. I'm listening to one guy and they're talking. He says, I got married and I thought this would save me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got married again. I thought that would save me. And then I tried this drug and I thought that would save me. And then and it's like Solomon. Yeah. I tried women, lots of them. That didn't save me. Money. I tried, and I didn't withhold anything from me. Anything I could have.
And build everything.
Right. I'm gonna create. I'm gonna do. And this whole thing, this idea, I'm gonna find the secret to. I think what it is joy. / contentment / peace / satisfaction, and I think it's part of the message of Ecclesiastes. No, you're going to find that in God. His whole at the end is turned to God. Well, actually, that's where you're going to find. And this is what hit me about joy is where the joy of the Lord is your strength. The joy I have, joy comes ultimately out of walking with God. He's the source. It's a fruit of the Spirit. So any lie I believe, and by the way, I'm doing this video yesterday on this, and this came to me in the video.
Joy video.
Right, the joy video. It wasn't in my notes. I hadn't planned. It was this idea, wait a second. The enemy then is going to try and get you to move away from the one thing. He's going to turn on God. Things aren't going well. They struggle, hardship, suffering in your life. Throw God out the window. He didn't pull up his end of the bargain, and he's tempting you to walk away from joy. Because where your joy is, and this is what I found, is when I'm grateful, I'm engaging God. Even if I'm praying my hard prayers, the doubts, the struggles, whatever, when I'm moving toward God, God is the source of joy. So I want to be moving toward him, not away from him. And that ends up, as I'm thinking about it literally right now, that's really the message of Ecclesiastes. There's like 10 chapters of, I tried to find it in all these other places that everyone can relate to. And at one point I was just like, eat, drink, be merry. That's all, just find some happiness in your work. But at the end, he said, in your youth, early on, pick up what I didn't pick up. It's God.
This is the whole end of man, the whole point of man's search for meaning. Fear God and keep his commands. This is the whole, what is it?
Whole duty of man. Right. In other words, it resonates with Micah, do justly, love mercy, and walk with God.
Walk with God.
This is the thing. If I walk with God, and as I walk with Him, and when I walk with Him, the shepherd takes us through the valley of the shadow of death. As I walk with Him, He doesn't ever make any promise about like where He's going to take us. Or sometimes He says, now, sometimes He will. The Apostle Paul, others, oh, you're going to go through hell. I'm going to take you through this. You're going to go through the fire. You're going to go through this.
I will show you how much you must suffer on my account.
Right. Jesus even suggests this, even in the Sermon on the Mount, when people persecute you and say false things against you because of me, He's almost like, okay, if you guys are paying attention, this is going to happen.
Jump for joy.
But it is walk with me. And I think that is what I have discovered is keep walking with Him. And there's where the fruit of the Spirit gets forged, where joy gets forged, where peace gets forged, where contentment gets forged. Walking with God, the Spirit at work, doing things in me. And I do think it's something people desperately are looking for. I think it is our message. Give people a reason for the joy.
Yeah.
Give people a reason for the hope. I think that is, people think, how do I talk to people about Jesus? Whatever. Well, talk about the hope. Talk about the joy. Talk about the, because people are looking for that. And you don't have to have all the facts and you don't have to prove everything and you don't have to get into evolution, creation debate and all these kind of things. You start talking about, I found joy. I found peace. I haven't found a perfect life. I've not found life with no relational struggles, no financial difficulties. I haven't found a life where I get a get out of jail free card and no death or disease comes to me. I didn't get any of that. But I get joy and peace and contentment walking with Jesus. I think that's our message.
Yeah, I was listening to someone this morning, Roy Vaden, that was just talking about entrepreneurs and how to experience financial security as an entrepreneur, and I was very intrigued by that because I'm like, so a lot of times as an entrepreneur, I feel like I'm just chasing dollars. You're chasing revenue. You gotta, because our friends Mark and Wendy asked over the weekend, do you ever wish that you just like worked for an organization again, where you just get a check? You show up for work, you get a check. Whereas in my world, you're constantly always marketing at one level what you do so that you can do more of what you do. In other words, if you don't publicize or market a trip, no one goes on that trip. No one goes on that adventure. And I felt many times like, man, I just feel like I'm chasing dollars all the time.
How did you answer their question?
I said, oh yeah, sometimes I miss it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
I said, I would miss. I said the thing I would miss is the free. It's the one thing that I miss as an entrepreneur. The steady paycheck. You show up for work, you do your thing, and you come home. But the other components of being an entrepreneur outweigh that by far in terms of
I know
what it means to go to work for someone else again. But all that said, when I was listening to this podcast, he talked about the new prophet is peace. I thought, isn't that interesting? He and his wife, very successful entrepreneurs. He said, but more and more we're worrying less about profit, and we're like hiring more people, even if it means far less money for us, because we want peace. We want less stress in our life. We want less complexity in our life, and we love paying other people because it's benefiting their life, and we want to pay them well. I thought, isn't that interesting? The new profit is peace. In other words, profit wasn't profit as in financial gain. It was profit as in we want our life to be more simple, less complex, less stressful, less chasing dollars, less we've got to, and he talks a lot about being debt free and the decision they made 20 years ago to be debt free and stay debt free, which for an entrepreneur sometimes is very hard to do.
Oh gosh, yeah.
But it made so much sense to me, because if you don't have debt, there's a degree to which you don't have to chase dollars, because your bills are just less. You just have less bills,
right?
Which is just good. But you have to learn contentment. Because if you're going to buy that thing, instead of paying for 5 years to get it, you might have to save for 3 years. to get that thing.
And what goes with the things we've been talking about is once we up front, just go ahead and blow away the lie of what that thing is going to give me.
Yeah.
Because that thing isn't going to give me peace. That thing isn't going to give me joy. It will be fun for a while.
Might even create happiness.
Right. But it's not going to, when you actually realize that those things, again, that we keep thinking, it's this pervasive lie that there is something that will get me peace, get me joy,
and that I can buy it.
That I can buy it, or I can experience it. I can.
What was the old Beatles song? Was it "Money Can't Buy You Love"? Well,
yes.
Can't buy you joy, hope, peace, satisfaction either,
right.
As it turns out.
And what was it? The Stones, I can't get no satisfaction. I mean, again, which to me is just could have been the title of Ecclesiastes, semicolon, I can't get no satisfaction.
No, I taught on it years ago, and my series title was Life's a Bitch and Then You Die. Because he is so, in one sense, depressing throughout the book. He said, what are you going to do if you just store up and stock up and you do all these things? He said, you're going to die and someone else gets it.
And he's giving the gift of get off the freaking rat race, because at the end is not what you're looking for. The top of that mountain is not what you're looking for. Stop climbing it.
I think you meant get out of the rat race or off the treadmill. I don't. That's just me. I'm just throwing it out there. It was good. It was a good point. Regardless, I'm going to say that.
Should we finish talking about the college football playoff? Reverse our. Yeah. The committee seemed to get it.
They nailed it.
I think they got it right.
Other than, I think Georgia might have been a better pick against Michigan. I don't know. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I don't see how Michigan has a chance against Washington. Washington is so crisp. Their execution is ridiculous. I have not watched them all year, understandably. We just don't see Washington. We don't see Pacific Coast
preseason
games.
Poll. I was looking at this because preseason poll, I think like one poll had them at like 23.
Yeah.
Washington.
So and I watched them. So it's the first game I've watched, and I had just watched two other games. I watched the Tennessee game, and then I watched the Alabama-Michigan game. Alabama-Michigan game really was sloppy to me by both teams in a lot of ways.
Yep.
And then I watched Washington, and I'm like, man, they're executing. They're solid. And Texas had some solid stuff too, but I went to bed at halftime. But I picked Washington to win at halftime just because of what I'd seen. And I'm like, I think they're just going to take Michigan. Their quarterback is so calm. The release is like Lamar Jackson quick. I mean, the way he can get rid of the ball, the pocket is collapsing. He's not panicking, and that ball comes out.
Some people are asking now.
On target.
Did he work himself into the first round of the draft?
May have. Well, what I didn't realize, he was second in the Heisman voting. So I'm like, the kid's good. And of course, I didn't even know who won.
Yep.
No, I did not know who won, Raj. And then I read about the LSU quarterback. And I don't know if he played in their game, but I know they made a huge comeback to win as well. But first quarterback in CFB history to have a 3,000-yard passing season and a 1,000-yard running season. First CFB quarterback in history to have, for their career, 12,000 passing yards and 3,000 rushing yards.
So I can say it's a good year.
I would say the NFL is also salivating over that.
For the Patriots to have a really high draft pick this year.
Yeah, because you could get one or two.
We couldn't get one. Now it's 2 to 5, depending. We have one more game.
I just meant one or two in the sense of you could get in that top 3.
Yes.
And get a quarterback out of that.
No, that's what I'm saying. Of all the years now, as it's turned out, it looks like a pretty good quarterback class, and
it looks like the Broncos need a quarterback again. Jarrett Stidham did, pretty dang good.
Yeah,
turns out got a lot of tutelage under Bill Belichick. So that was good.
Yeah, I know Jarrett. Yeah.
So next year is going to be the season for Tennessee. Great game for them. The little freshman did fantastic.
SEC looks super scary next year.
Yeah, my guess is there's going to be a minimum of 6 teams in the top 12
team playoff.
Could be 8.
Bruce called it here. You heard it.
first on the Pastords. And you may not have heard it if yours cut off a second ago. All right, Pastords
All
out.
right, we love you
Happy New Year. We love you so much.
so much.